History usually moves in a straight line. Stone tools become bronze. Bronze becomes iron. Simple ideas slowly evolve into complex machines. But every once in a while, history breaks its own rules. In the year 1901, divers searching the seabed near a tiny Greek island pulled up something that looked like nothing more than corroded scrap metal. No gold, no statues worth headlines. Just a lump of green bronze and fragments of wood. It was catalogued, shelved, and almost forgotten until someone noticed the gears. Not decorative gears, not symbolic gears. Precision cut, interlocking gears, dozens of them, arranged with mathematical intent. What emerged from that shipwreck was not just an artifact. It was a problem. A problem so severe that it still hasn't fully settled more than a century later. Because this object was not supposed to exist. Here's the mystery we're solving today. How did an ancient civilization without electricity, without modern tools, without industrial manufacturing build a machine so advanced that it rivals 18th century clockwork and behaves like a mechanical computer? If the Antikythera Mechanism is real, and it is, then either our understanding of ancient intelligence is deeply flawed, or an entire chapter of human technological history has been erased. The story doesn't begin with a genius inventor or a shining machine. It begins in silence underwater, where history usually goes to sleep. It's the year 1900, and a group of sponge divers from the Greek island of Symi are battling rough seas near a small, rocky place called Antikythera. This is not an expedition of scholars or scientists. These men are not searching for answers about human progress. They are simply trying to survive long enough to earn a living. When one diver descends into the cold darkness, he expects sponges. What he sees instead looks like a nightmare lifeless bodies scattered across the seabed, horses frozen in motion, arms reaching out from the sand. He surfaces in terror, believing he has found a shipwreck full of corpses, but these are not bodies. They are statues. Bronze and marble, lying where they fell nearly 2,000 years ago. The discovery sparks interest, but not awe. Ancient shipwrecks are not rare. Statues are valuable, yes, but familiar. When the salvage operation begins, crates of sculptures, pottery, and coins are hauled to the surface. Museums celebrate. Headlines fade. The shipwreck is categorized, dated roughly to the 1st century BCE, and quietly placed into the long list of known ancient trade disasters. This is where the story should end. This is where history usually ends these kinds of stories. But mixed among the statues is something no one understands. A corroded lump of bronze and wood, broken into fragments, green with oxidation, cracked by centuries underwater. It doesn't look important. It doesn't look valuable. It looks like debris, so it's stored, largely ignored. While scholars argue about sculptures and inscriptions that fit comfortably within existing knowledge, years pass, dust gathers, and then, almost by accident, someone notices something that shouldn't be there. Inside the corrosion are teeth, not animal teeth, gear teeth. At first, it's assumed to be part of a navigational instrument. Maybe an astrolabe. Maybe a simple clock-like device. After all, ancient Greeks were clever, but not too clever. The assumption is comforting, reassuring, because if it's just another instrument, then history remains intact. But as fragments are examined more closely, the problem begins to grow. There aren't just a few gears. There are dozens, interlocking, layered, cut with mathematical precision. Gear ratios that don't happen by accident. Gear ratios that suggest calculation. This is the moment the shipwreck stops being ordinary. Because a merchant vessel from ancient Greece should not be carrying a machine like this. A society that supposedly relied on sundials and basic astronomy should not be producing compact, gear-driven systems capable of modeling complex cycles. Yet here it is, dragged up from the seabed like a contradiction made of bronze. The shipwreck itself becomes suspicious. Why was such a device on board? Who owned it? Was it cargo, a personal tool, a scientific instrument being transported to a wealthy patron? And if one ship carried something like this, how many others existed that never survived? The sea has a way of choosing what history gets to remember and what it gets to erase. What makes this shipwreck so dangerous to our understanding of the past is not what else it carried, but what it accidentally preserved. This was not a royal tomb or a ceremonial offering. This was a working vessel, engaged in trade, moving objects from one place to another, which means the Antikythera Mechanism was not buried with reverence. It was used, it traveled. It belonged in the real world, not the symbolic one. And that changes everything. Because if this machine was part of everyday intellectual life owned, transported, perhaps even sold, then ancient technology was not a collection of isolated miracles. It was a system, a tradition. A body of knowledge that lived, moved, and functioned until something caused it to vanish. The shipwreck near Antikythera shouldn't matter. It should be just another dot on an archaeological map. But instead it becomes a fault line, cracking open a version of history that suddenly feels incomplete, unstable, and carefully edited, leaving us staring at a single recovered object and asking how many others the sea kept, how many ounces sank with them, and whether the story of human progress we've been telling ourselves was ever as simple as we thought. Once the fragments of the Antikythera Mechanism are separated and cleaned, the real shock begins not in what can be seen at first glance, but in what slowly reveals itself under patient study. These are not decorative gears, not symbolic representations, not crude approximations hammered together by trial and error. These gears are intentional, they are measured. They are precise in a way that immediately feels out of place in the ancient world we think we know. Each gear tooth is cut with consistency, forming ratios that are mathematically exact. This is not the kind of craftsmanship that emerges accidentally. To produce gears like these, you need planning before metal ever meets the tool. You need abstract understanding of how rotational motion transfers, how cycles can be predicted, how one moving part can represent something invisible, time, motion, the sky itself. Ancient Greece was supposed to be a world of philosophy and observation, not mechanical abstraction at this level. Yet the Antikythera Mechanism refuses to stay within those boundaries. As researchers reconstruct the fragments, they realize the gears are stacked in layers. Not one plane, but multiple systems working together, each affecting the other. Turn one dial and several others respond in coordinated motion. This is the defining characteristic of advanced machinery. Complexity that is hidden, not obvious. Complexity designed to compress vast systems into something portable. And suddenly the object stops being an instrument and starts behaving like a machine. The uncomfortable question emerges quickly. Where did this knowledge come from? Because to build something like this, the creator needed more than theoretical astronomy. They needed metalworking precision capable of producing uniform teeth. They needed standardized measurements. They needed the confidence to trust mathematics over intuition. Most disturbingly, they needed a reason to build it in the first place. No civilization invents this level of complexity without a culture that values it, funds it, teaches it, and understands what it can do. And yet we find no instruction manuals. No workshops filled with half-finished mechanisms. No gradual evolutionary trail leading up to this device. It appears fully formed, like a technological outlier that somehow slipped through time. That absence is what makes the gears so dangerous to history. If these gears exist, then the missing steps must exist too. They just didn't survive. As scientists examine the gear ratios, they notice something even more unsettling. The numbers align with astronomical cycles, the movements of the sun, the moon, even irregular phenomena like eclipses. This is not representation, this is prediction. The machine doesn't just show what the sky looks like. It calculates what the sky will do. In effect, the gears are encoding cosmic knowledge into bronze. Think about that for a moment. The sky reduced to machinery. This requires an understanding of periodicity, error correction, and long-term observation accumulated over generations. The mechanism, S-Builder trusted gears to do what human memory and observation alone could not carry knowledge forward without distortion. That trust in machinery suggests a worldview far more modern than we're comfortable admitting. What makes this discovery even more troubling is how cleanly it works. There is no wasted motion, no unnecessary parts. Every gear has a purpose. Every tooth contributes to a larger calculation. This is optimization, not experimentation. Optimization suggests experience, and experience suggests repetition, which leads to the most unsettling implication of all. This was not a one-off miracle. Gears like these imply a tradition of mechanical engineering that existed long enough to refine itself. But that tradition vanishes from the historical record as if it were deliberately erased. The Romans inherit Greek lands, but not Greek machines. The medieval world rediscovers gear-based computation centuries later, as if starting from scratch. The line is broken. So when we look at the Antikythera Mechanism's gears, we are not just looking at metal. We are looking at a missing chapter in human capability, a moment where ancient minds crossed a threshold we assumed belonged to modernity, and did so quietly, efficiently, and without leaving behind the trail of technological breadcrumbs we expect, leaving us to wonder whether history forgot them or whether they were never meant to be remembered at all. At some point, the Antikythera Mechanism stops behaving like a clever astronomical tool and starts acting like something far more unsettling. When researchers simulate its movement, when they turn the reconstructed dials and watch the gears respond, a realization quietly takes hold. This device is not merely showing information. It is processing it, input goes in, output comes out. Change one variable, and the entire system recalculates. That is the moment the word computer enters the conversation, not as metaphor, but as function. Modern computers rely on electricity, code, and silicon. Strip those away, and what remains is logic. Structured steps. Mechanical cause and effect designed to solve a problem automatically. The Antikythera Mechanism does exactly that using bronze gears instead of transistors. By rotating a hand crank, the user sets a date, and the machine responds by computing the positions of celestial bodies across multiple cycles. This is not static knowledge frozen in metal. It is a dynamic calculation unfolding in real time. What makes this even more astonishing is the type of problems the machine is solving. Lunar motion is not simple. The moon does not move at a constant speed. Its orbit is irregular, accelerating and slowing in ways that confused astronomers for centuries. Yet the Antikythera Mechanism accounts for this using a sophisticated system of offset gears that mimic these variations mechanically. This is error correction built into hardware, a concept we associate with advanced mathematics and engineering, now sitting quietly in an object over 2,000 years old. This level of abstraction is what truly separates tools from computers. A sundial tells time by shadow. An astrolabe helps measure angles. But the Antikythera Mechanism goes further. It models invisible systems. It takes observed patterns and encodes them into mechanical relationships that can be reused, adjusted, and extended far beyond the original observations. In doing so, it becomes a physical embodiment of scientific theory, and theory requires confidence. Someone believed these calculations were reliable enough to be locked into metal. Someone believed future users would trust the output without rechecking the sky themselves. That belief is profound. It suggests a culture that not only observed nature, but understood it well enough to predict it, teach it, and preserve it through machinery. As inscriptions on the fragments are deciphered, it becomes clear that this device was meant to be used, not admired. It had instructions, labels, explanations. This was not a mysterious priestly object guarded by elites. It was an interface, a user-facing machine designed to make complex knowledge accessible. In a sense, it democratized the cosmos, allowing anyone trained to operate it to see far beyond their own lifetime. This raises a question that becomes increasingly uncomfortable the longer we sit with it. If ancient Greece possessed analog computers, why did the idea disappear? Why does the historical narrative leap from philosophical speculation to medieval rediscovery, skipping over a period where computation clearly existed in mechanical form? The Antikythera Mechanism suggests that computation did not begin with Charles Babbage or the Industrial Revolution. It began when humans realized that the universe runs on repeatable patterns and that those patterns can be simulated. That insight is the foundation of all computing. And it was already there, quietly turning gears in a wooden case aboard a merchant ship. Even more unsettling is how compact and elegant the solution is. There is no excess, no brute force. Just clever geometry translated into motion. This is not primitive thinking, this is mature design, the kind that emerges after trial, refinement, and shared knowledge. So when we call the Antikythera Mechanism the world's first computer, we are not exaggerating for effect. We are acknowledging that the core idea of computation, using a machine to model reality, was achieved long before we thought. Humanity was capable of it, forcing us to confront the possibility that technological progress is not a straight line forward, but a fragile chain of insights that can be broken, forgotten, and rediscovered, leaving behind a single surviving machine that whispers of an ancient intelligence far more advanced than the story we usually tell. The most haunting aspect of the Antikythera Mechanism is not what it does, but what followed after it. Because once this machine enters the historical record, it does something no great invention is supposed to do. It disappears. There is no lineage that grows from it. No school of mechanical astronomy that carries its methods forward. No steady improvement leading to even more advanced devices. Instead, there is silence. To understand why this is so disturbing, we have to consider what kind of environment produces a machine like this. Knowledge of this depth does not live in isolation. It requires teachers, students, workshops, diagrams, debates, and generations of observation. Someone had to measure the sky for decades, compare records, refine models, and argue over corrections. Someone had to translate that abstract knowledge into metal, trusting that the logic would survive physical construction. And yet, once the Antikythera Mechanism sinks beneath the sea, that entire intellectual ecosystem seems to vanish with it. The ancient world was not short on written material. Libraries existed. Treatises were copied and debated. Greek thinkers wrote extensively about astronomy, mathematics, and natural philosophy. We know their names. We quote their ideas. But nowhere in surviving literature do we find a detailed description of a machine like this. There are hints, vague references to spheres that mimic the heavens, to devices that demonstrate celestial motion, but nothing that prepares us for the mechanical sophistication found in the Antikythera fragments. This absence forces a difficult conclusion. Either the knowledge behind the mechanism was extremely rare, confined to a small circle whose work did not spread widely, or it was once more common and later erased. History tends to prefer gradual loss, but the evidence here suggests something sharper. A break, a collapse. War offers one explanation. The ancient Mediterranean was not peaceful. Cities burned, libraries were destroyed. Scholars were scattered or killed. If mechanical knowledge was concentrated in specific centers, places like Alexandria, then its destruction could have wiped out entire fields of study in a single generation. But even that doesn't fully explain the scale of disappearance. Ideas tend to survive in fragments, techniques resurface. Yet mechanical computation vanishes almost completely. Cultural shifts may have played an even greater role. As empires changed, priorities changed. Practical engineering gave way to administrative control. Scientific instruments may have been seen as curiosities rather than necessities. Without institutional support, complex knowledge withers quickly. A machine no one knows how to repair becomes useless. A theory no one teaches becomes myth. The Antikythera Mechanism may represent the last echo of a tradition already in decline. A masterpiece created at the edge of forgetting. If so, then it was not ahead of its time, but behind it built by scholars desperately preserving a worldview they sensed was slipping away, and that makes the loss even more tragic. Because this was not just technical knowledge. It was a way of thinking about the universe, a belief that nature could be understood, predicted, and represented through rational systems. When that belief weakens, so does the motivation to build machines that embody it. The gears stop turning, not because they fail, but because no one asks them to move anymore. What survives into later centuries is theory without mechanism, philosophy without hardware. Astronomy returns to observation and tables, leaving behind the idea that the sky itself can be modeled in motion. It will take more than 1,000 years before humanity rediscovers this insight. And when it does, it will act as if it is entirely new, which leaves us staring at the Antikythera Mechanism as a kind of time capsule from a lost intellectual world, asking not only how such knowledge could exist, but how something so powerful, so elegant, and so useful could simply slip through history's fingers, leaving behind no clear descendants, no recorded legacy, and no explanation for why the ancient mind once reached this height and then chose or was forced to let it fall away. By the time we fully grasp what the Antikythera mechanism is capable of, it becomes impossible to look at the ancient world the same way again. This single object doesn't just add a fascinating footnote to history. It challenges the very metric we use to judge intelligence, progress, and sophistication in early civilizations. For centuries, we have measured ancient brilliance through philosophy, art, and abstract mathematics, quietly assuming that true technological intelligence belongs to the modern age. The Antikythera mechanism breaks that assumption apart. Intelligence, as revealed by this machine, is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with towering monuments or vast empires. It operates quietly in workshops and calculations and devices built to solve problems most people never see. The mechanism reveals an ancient mindset capable of systems thinking, where multiple variables are understood as parts of a larger whole. This is not isolated genius. This is integrated knowledge. The builders of the Antikythera mechanism understood time not as a vague flow, but as something measurable, predictable, and compressible. They saw the heavens not as chaotic or divine theater, but as a clockwork system governed by repeatable laws. This is the same intellectual leap that fuels modern science. The difference is that we thought it happened much later. What this forces us to confront is uncomfortable. If ancient engineers could build machines that encode astronomical theory, then ancient education must have been far more advanced than surviving texts suggest. Teaching this knowledge would require structured curricula, shared mathematical language, and practical training in both theory and craftsmanship. Philosophy alone does not produce gears. Mathematics alone does not produce machines. The Antikythera mechanism sits at the intersection of disciplines, suggesting an educational culture that valued synthesis over specialization. This also reframes the role of ancient scientists. Figures like Hipparchus, Archimedes, and Apollonius are often remembered as thinkers, not builders. But the mechanism hints that their ideas may not have lived only on parchment. They may have been tested, refined, and embodied in physical devices. The boundary between philosopher and engineer blurs, revealing a world where thinking and making were deeply connected. Perhaps most disruptive is what this implies about lost institutions. Libraries are easy to imagine as quiet places of scrolls and scholars. But what if they were also centers of mechanical experimentation? What if workshops sat alongside reading rooms, where theory was immediately translated into practice? If such institutions existed, their destruction would not just erase books, but entire technological ecosystems. The Antikythera mechanism also challenges the narrative of linear progress. We like to believe that humanity moves steadily forward, each generation smarter and more capable than the last. But this machine suggests a different pattern. Peaks followed by valleys. Insights gained, then lost. Intelligence not as a permanent climb, but as something fragile, dependent on cultural stability, transmission, and value systems. When we imagine ancient people as intellectually limited, we reveal more about our assumptions than their abilities. The mechanism does not represent an exception to ancient intelligence. It reveals its ceiling. A ceiling far higher than we were taught to expect. And once that ceiling is raised, everything else has to be re-examined. How many other inventions were possible but lost? How many ideas were developed, tested, and abandoned because history shifted in another direction? How many fragments lie misidentified in museum drawers, dismissed because they don't fit the story we think we already know? The Antikythera mechanism forces us to admit that ancient intelligence was not just philosophical or artistic, but deeply technical, experimental, and system-oriented, capable of abstract modeling and mechanical execution at a level that rivals much later periods, demanding that we rewrite our understanding of what the ancient mind could achieve and recognize. That progress is not owned by any era, but borrowed temporarily by those who managed to preserve it. After everything the Antikythera mechanism reveals its gears, its calculations, its lost knowledge, one question refuses to settle. Was this machine unique, or was it merely the only one that survived? This is where the mystery deepens, because the answer changes everything about how we understand the ancient world. If the Antikythera mechanism was a singular creation, then it represents an almost unimaginable convergence of genius. A lone breakthrough, centuries ahead of its time, built by minds operating far beyond their cultural environment. That explanation is comforting in a way. It allows history to remain mostly intact, with one extraordinary exception that can be admired without forcing a full rewrite. But the evidence resists this conclusion. Machines like this do not appear fully formed. They are refined, tested, improved. The Antikythera Mechanism shows no signs of being an early prototype. There is no awkward experimentation, no excessive components, no crude approximations. It is elegant, efficient, and confident. That confidence implies predecessors. It implies failed versions, corrected models, and a lineage of devices leading up to this one. A tradition leaves fingerprints, and this machine is covered in them. Then there is the matter of purpose. This was not a ceremonial object. It was not buried in a temple or hidden in a vault. It was aboard a merchant ship, traveling alongside luxury goods and everyday cargo. That placement alone suggests utility. Someone believed this machine was worth transporting, perhaps selling, perhaps gifting, perhaps delivering to a patron who expected it to work. You do not ship an experimental one-off across dangerous seas. You ship something proven, which raises the possibility that others like it once existed in workshops, schools, or private collections, quietly turning gears while students learn the rhythms of the sky. If so, the Antikythera Mechanism is not an anomaly, it is a survivor. The ocean is a ruthless editor of history, but it is also a selective one. Wood rots, iron corrodes, bronze survives. What we have may be less than 1% of what once existed. Entire libraries of machines could have been lost simply because they were not made of materials durable enough to reach us. What if mechanical knowledge didn't vanish because it failed, but because it was fragile? Even written references hint at more. Ancient authors describe devices that imitate celestial motion, elaborate orreries, and automated systems that blur the line between science and magic. We've long dismissed these accounts as exaggerations or metaphors. But the Antikythera Mechanism forces us to reconsider them as literal descriptions of technologies we no longer recognize. And if more machines existed, then their disappearance becomes the real mystery. Why did no one rebuild them? Why did no later civilization inherit and expand upon this knowledge? The answer may lie not in ability, but in values. Technological progress depends on more than intelligence. It depends on social stability, economic support, and a belief that such knowledge matters. When those conditions collapse, even the most advanced ideas can vanish in a generation. This makes the Antikythera Mechanism feel less like a beginning and more like an ending, a final artifact from a road not taken. A proof that humanity once approached a future we associate with modernity, then turned away, whether by choice or catastrophe. So we are left with an object that refuses to be neatly categorized. It is too advanced to be ancient, yet too ancient to be modern. It doesn't fit our timelines, our assumptions, or our comfort zones. It sits in museums not just as an artifact, but as a question made of bronze, asking whether history is a story of progress or survival, whether brilliance is rare or simply easy to lose, and whether the greatest mystery of the Antikythera Mechanism is not how it was built, but how close we came to forgetting that it ever existed at all. The Antikythera Mechanism leaves us standing at the edge of a realization that is both thrilling and deeply unsettling. Piece by piece, this corroded machine has dismantled the comfortable version of history we thought we understood. It tells us that ancient people were not merely observers of the universe, but active modelers of it, capable of turning abstract cosmic rhythms into precise mechanical motion. It reveals a world where knowledge did not just live in words and ideas, but in devices built to think alongside their creators. What makes this story resonate is not just the brilliance of the machine, but the silence that surrounds it. A silence where entire traditions may have vanished. A silence where workshops went cold, teachers disappeared, and knowledge slipped out of human memory. The Antikythera Mechanism becomes a reminder that intelligence is not guaranteed a future. It must be protected, transmitted, and valued, or it fades regardless of how advanced it once was. This single artifact forces us to rethink progress itself, not as a straight, inevitable climb, but as a fragile process shaped by culture, stability, and choice. It suggests that humanity has stood at advanced thresholds before, only to step back into darkness, leaving behind faint echoes that surface centuries later as shocking discoveries. In the end, the Antikythera Mechanism does more than rewrite ancient history. It holds up a mirror to our own time. It asks what knowledge we assume will last, what technologies we believe are permanent, and what future generations might find of us if our own systems collapse. Because somewhere beneath corrosion and silence, the gears of human understanding are always turning. And the greatest lesson this machine offers is not about the past, but about how easily even the most extraordinary achievements can be lost if we fail to remember why they mattered in the first place.